I think that the way that this is laid out is pretty effective in that we have a lot of video today. So what we did in the last 2 weeks is we tried to put as many drills as that we could, and we filmed everything on the drone or on the iPod right on top of that field. So the last couple of clinics that I've been to, a lot of the feedback has been, we just want to see it. It's hard to explain it. Even drawing it on the whiteboard is really difficult. So we try to input a lot more film. So it is going to be a little bit more broken up, and then it won't stay on the PowerPoint. Our film software is much easier to watch and rewind just on our desktop. So we have a bunch of film. We'll kind of go back and forth, and then just please stop and ask us questions. I want to make sure that you guys are the loyal ones that will continue to come and spend time with us. So we want to really provide you with more drills if one doesn't make sense, or just talk about concepts that we're trying this upcoming season, really. But I do think that there's some new things that we've tried that are really effective because they're basic, and we've been consistent with them, and we've seen a lot of progress. So for regardless of level, I think that these drills are pretty effective. So I'm going to speak on special teams, and what I mean by that is like man up, man down, riding, clearing, face-off, wing play. I'm not going to touch the face-off game. Hunter will touch on that, and as well as team specials. And what I mean by that is we've identified 3 or 4 things that we do every day. So every day we practice plan. We have a list of items that we want to cover, and on the top of that list are 3 things that never get deleted. And for us, it's ground balls, riding and clearing, and team fundamentals. And we've essentially dedicated 5 minutes every day to the most basic concept. So if it is attackman, stick protection. And we literally spent 5 minutes of guys doing the most monotonous movement. And my message to the coaches when we decided we were going to do that was, I want the guys to be annoyed to a point of how simple it is. And it's a little nuance. Every day it's different, but those 3 things are in our practice plan no matter what. So I'll go over some of those team specials as well. And as we go, we'll talk about a different video drill. I don't have a ton, but when you get into Ryan and Tyler, they're going to break it down into our 3v3 drills, 4v4s, 5v5s, how we build into our offense, defense, into our 6-on-6. We've done a lot more part hold this year, where we'll do a shooting drill, we'll do a 4v4, which take out 2 or 3 components of the offense and defense, and then we'll build up to 6-on-6 versus just everybody wants to play 6-on-6, but the concepts have not carried over throughout the process. So we've broken it down to 2v2, 4v4, 5v5, and then 6v6. So these are the things that I talk about when I talk about special teams, and these are the areas that, again, we try to invest some time every day. The new process for us, man up, man down, has been an issue for us the last 2 years statistically. And we've noticed that a lot of times everybody has man up, man down at the end of practice. And you guys do man up, man down at the end of practice. What we did in college that was effective is actually everybody left the practice field and just the man up and man down guys stayed. So that's what we started to transition to, because a lot of times you build into practice, but half the team's not involved in it. So you lose the focus and attention to those guys. So when I put special teams, it's things that also kind of get thrown to the wayside too. And that's why we included that. As well as the face-off game, and as I mentioned, we've really looked at the face-off game in terms of the wing play and reevaluated how we assign responsibilities. Because a lot of times our guys run in and there's no task ahead of them. It's just sprint in. And even at times tonight you'll see that. But what we've tried to do is say, okay, these are your 3 or 4 specific roles and responsibilities. And then this is how it could change if our GO is winning 70% versus GO's winning 25%. And that's what we had last year. We had games where we believe won 1 face-off against Air Force. And then fast forward 3 weeks later, we play Richmond, and we won 70% of the face-offs. The plans completely changed. So we've tried to create a little bit more of a task list based on how we're performing that game, if it's dramatic. Now, if it's 50-50 or 60-40, we're still going to fall back on our principles. But when it gets to the 70% or higher, or the 30% or lower, God forbid that happens this year, I hope not, then we have a plan in place. So that's what we'll talk about in terms of the face-off game. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is riding. I had a chance to go to the convention last year. I don't know if any of you guys were there and watch Lars Tiffany presentation. I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to watch that. It's online as well. And I'm always one of those guys that's like, I don't want to steal ideas from other people. It was fantastic. It was as basic as individual work drills, into half field drills, into how they drill full field riding and clearing in a half field segment and a full field segment. I was so impressed. And what was really cool is I saw that presentation in, December, and then you watch them win the national championship. So what we did the other day, actually, Coach Crowdy cut clips of all of Virginia's rides in that Virginia Yale game. And the biggest thing that we took away from it was their effort and energy. It was a simple thing, so we came up with the concept of care, And that's something that we're going to use now for our guys moving forward, because what you notice in that game, especially the Duke game if you watched it, their effort at the end of the game was contagious, not only to their teammates, the midfielders, but also to the opponent. And I know even at our level, and I'm sure in the high school level, poles get really nervous even when guys are just coming at them, even if they don't get there. And you saw in the Duke game, and I talked to Coach Janowski about this, they just thought their short six, and I played with the kid Pendergrass who threw that pass this summer, they just thought their short six were nervous because all game Virginia would ride to the midfield line, so they were constantly kind of looking and hesitating. They weren't looking upfield to make easy decisions, they were kind of looking to see who's going to hit me next. So I came up with the concept of this contagious attack riding effort. That means you care. And our attack, we have a young attack, so I tell them, they're not going to be very experienced, but you can be contagious if you give us great effort and if you care. So that's what we use with the attack. And then we break it down to our non-negotiables. So even today, because we did a lot of riding yesterday, I was really disappointed in how it looked, and I made the guys send me our 5 non-negotiables. And there's only 4 listed here, but I had each attackman send me this. Number 1 is what we're going to show you in the first videos. We came up with the concept of stopping a guy and then chopping a guy. And that is right stolen from Lars Tiffany's verbiage. And it was a great message because a lot of attackmen, they chase and then they start whacking. And your job, first and foremost, is to disrupt the pattern of momentum. So they came up with this concept of stop the tree and then chop down the tree. And a lot of guys go to that one-handed method, and I watched these guys drill it, and it was like playing defense. It was an individual approach. You stop them, and then as they move east and west, you start chopping them. Now, we're going to show you a video that's really basic and elementary in nature, but it gave me this great vision of if we can get these guys just to cross-check, that would be an advantage. And then if we can get them to cross-check and then start checking, that's when we're going to start to create some cause turnovers. The concept of crunching to the midfield, we're going to show you this drill that we came up with this year called the trap drill, but we have different riding systems, but we are often chasing eventually. At some point, we're behind the ball when the midfield. And if our team does a good job subbing and we can step up, there's opportunities to trap ball carriers by the midfield. So we're going to show you a drill there. And the concept of just jamming versus over jumping, that's really goes back to the stop and chop. A lot of guys, when they get to the ball, will jump, right? They'll try to pick off a pass. And our defensemen are starting to get savvy to it. You'll see a clip or a little pump fake, and then they just sprint right by him. So the concept of jamming versus jumping, and then our snapshot rules, which is really basic. No matter what we do, we have success with our snapshot rules of getting 1 in the face or on the ball, 1 on the short stick closest to the attack, and then 1 to the opposite the box. So that's our snapshot. And that helped us last year. One of the things that we started to get better as the year went on, of just making sure we took away that first pass. Whether it was a ground ball to the corner, a goalie save, a ball off the back of the net, we got 1 in the face, whether it was the goalie or the defenseman. And that snapshot alone probably saved us some transition goals. And then we'll talk about the strategies, some specific ways that we approach, how we send ball carriers. I can show you all of that in the trap drill. And I'll use a lot of terminology, but ace approaches is how we send the ball carrier in the riding game, which means we send every ball carrier in the alleys to the sidelines. Our goal is we want to use the sideline as a teammate, we want to use the midfield line as a teammate, and then the attackman, his job is to make the interior wall. And if that makes sense, and again, you'll see that in the trap drill. And then stunt technique is what we've done a lot of this fall. So the way that we're riding, we have a 0 through 3 system. 0 means nobody's chasing. 1 means exactly who we just talked about, 1 in the face and then 1 chase. 2 is what we've been doing all fall. So we've dropped 1 attackman, 2 chase, and instead of chasing, because of the new rules for us at the college level with 20 seconds, we just try to roadblock. So we don't run into them, we try to run in front of them and just prevent the ball from moving north-south. We notice that when we chase, you might get 1 or 2, but eventually you're behind the ball. When you roadblock, you're forcing that goalie and defense to ball handle more than the midfielders. And again, we'll show you that as well in that video, just so you guys know our verbiage here. That's what we mean by roadblocks and stunts. And then the last piece is that, as we mentioned, our system, our flexibilities we are 0 through 3, so we could call out any of those numbers, and I don't know if we would do it even well, except for 2, because that's what we've practiced. 0 is relatively easy in nature, that's heels on the midfield line. That's mostly what we were last year. And then we'll talk about some 10-man stuff in terms of what we do there as well. So that's kind of how we'll break it down if that's good with you guys. And what I'll do is I just want to show you guys some videos now so you guys can get a concept of some of the riding clips. So I'm just going to minimize this here. I don't know how to minimize. Coach Lava's computer is much more fancy than mine. What's up?
Can you minimize the PowerPoint?
Right there. Yeah, can you get it?
Oh, the green one. Let's go to the top.
All right. Again, just go back and forth with these clips. But as I mentioned, the first one is as basic as it looks. We started to do this a little bit more with the attack because they were really struggling with it. I had just a couple guys demo it here. But it is as simple as a stop concept, approach to the ball, and a chop. And what we've done is we've started to build this into our individual fundamental work. So the guys, they start using two hands, cross-checking, really encouraging them. Very rarely are they going to get called for a cross-check. So putting the top of the hand on the plastic and taking advantage. And Coach Trinelli ran a drill yesterday, similar drill, but with pads. Because what we've noticed is our attack is like, we don't want to hurt the guys. And you know, we try to send them a message that, you know, you guys get beat on all practice long. And this is like your one opportunity. We're telling you, we're like taking off the leash here. And they still are kind of taking these small checks. So one of the things I did today was I asked each attackman to send me a quote of how a coach would describe their riding right now versus how you would want a coach to describe your riding. And every single guy, we have 7 attackmen right now, every single guy has had some version in their quote of, I don't ride hard enough, I don't hit hard enough, I don't disrupt the ball hard enough. One of those 3 variables. All 7 guys without being prompted. So I think that just shows a message to, you know, what we're lacking in with our attack right now. And it is a lot of young guys. But I think that this concept, again, I stole this drill right from Virginia, but it was a very simple way of saying mentally, all right, all I gotta do is stop them, and then I start chopping them. And I think a lot of attackmen go into the chop mode right away in their process. And then this next drill is that trap drill. So I'm just gonna lay it out here quickly. You start with 2 defensemen and 2 attackmen and a goalie. Ball can come in from a coach or can start with the goalie. We have all of our midfielders in the box. So all of our midfielders right there would sub through the box into our thirds of our midfield zone. Now this would be considered a regular ride. It would not be a 10-man ride. Obviously we could send a 4th if we wanted a 10-man. And what you'll see is we're going to put a coach on the 40-yard line and the 40-yard line of the face-off wings. So that's how the drill sets up. Starts with a whistle. What's nice is it's a quick drill. Not a lot of the middies get a ton of reps, but you can go fast if you have 6 or 7 attacks, 6 or 7 defensemen. The ball will go to the goalie, and we're right into our stunt 2 ride. Actually, I'll let the volume play. It's going to help. So we're 2 here, and what we're thinking is we don't need to stop this guy, we need to roadblock him. So the approaches are much more banana in nature to make sure that instead of stopping it, he just is going to see you and take away the ability in his mind that he can advance the ball north-south. So this would be our stunt on the backside. Our stunt man, our backside attackman, his responsibility is to make it look like he could cover either. Obviously, we want to dare the goalie. The goalie's doing a good job here of flushing to the ball side to make it difficult to stunt. You'd be shocked how many goalies don't do that. You'd be shocked how many goalies stay near the middle of the field. And if the goalies do stay near the middle, it allows our attackman Matty here to really stay deep and cover 2 guys. So that's what we mean by stunting. You can see here, this is a good space where we're essentially making the goalie make a decision with the ball. And as you can look in the back, our midfielders, when the ball's in the middle, are in a perfect third zone. We name our field, so this would be Boston, Miami, and Omaha, and they're in really good zones above their man, getting ready to step up if bumped. So the midfielders are working on that bump technique. That's a good job by Matt, just making the goalie make a decision here. And then in the drill, you hear us yell jet. Jet for us means whoever has the ball with the defense, shot clock's going, we gotta go. And with 20 seconds, we're probably, you know, I can look right here, yeah, we'd probably be, it's amazing how fast the clear is. Let's see when this started. On possession is 50 seconds. So at 110, there would be a shot clock. It's 10 seconds. Now this is where the midfield comes into play. So I would say that the midfielder stepping up on the ball side, or Omaha midfielder, he's doing a decent job. He's got to make sure that obviously we're bumping. So our LSM has got to really get on his horse to be able to do this. Our middle third and our verbiage of Miami midfielder. So you can see our pole's on his way over. Not terrible timing, because if he made this pass, it might be a situation where we arrive right on his gloves. All right, but this is where we want to trap now. So now it goes back to the beginning language. Ace approach, send the ball carrier to the alley. Our trap zones are defined as anywhere between the 30 and the 50 inside the wing lines. So this rectangular shape. If we can do a good job as a tackman, not allowing that ball carrier to get back to the middle of the field, and what we tell our guys is, don't even get on the same level of him. Trail him a little bit and make him have to throw through you if he does want to redirect the ball. And this is where you'll see, if we do a good job riding tonight, where we'll get our turnovers. And then the midfielder's responsibility is step up with your stick in your outside hand. So on this side of the field it would be left hand, on that side of the field it would be right hand. This isn't an ideal world. This means our pole's in the middle, because he's our longest guy, and our middies on the corners are our more aggressive short stick defensive midfielders. Ideal world, now you can see right there, we go to the one hand. We don't stay disciplined, we don't have our stick, we don't trail them. But you can tell, if we are disciplined in this exact moment, really difficult situation to get out of. Same thing here. Should be approaching with a stick in his right hand, just taking away that spot, but not terrible. He stops the momentum of the ball. Good stunt by Riley here. Now this is a scenario where the ball is so far forward, we probably aren't going to get our trap. So the solution would be, we need to stay deep, we'll work our way over, and as soon as he crosses that midfield line, we have a one-on-one with not a lot of space. We might not get a double, but we're providing pressure right away, and we haven't made ourselves vulnerable on the defensive side of the field. So that's probably, in my opinion, our biggest struggle right now. But the beauty of this drill for the midfielders, and just having two coaches stand here, is that you can provide specific direction for who they should be looking at to see if whether or not you can step up. This drill has really helped our middies in terms of their communication. But that's our trap zone right there. That's the area that we want to put those guys in difficult positions. I'll show you one more here. I would say it's probably an overcommitment, because if this pass was made, he'd have a lot of space to run. Hash marks are good guidelines. At the end of the day, make the goalies handle the ball a little bit more, and then make them handle with decisions. I think sometimes when you chase, it's like following the slide. You make the decisions really easily. When you split the field and you stunt, and we call that like smoking or hedging in our defense, it makes those guys who don't like to handle the ball second guess their decision making. And if you can buy yourself 2 or 3 seconds, yeah, you might not cause a turnover, but you might be able to sub one more guy. Good discipline here, nice stunt, a little bit more hedge. And you can see our pole here, I don't know who that is, on the ball, on the Boston side, does a great job of saying, hey, I can't leave till you bump me. So he points, hey, bump me, and then he releases. And again, don't have to put free stag there. That's a perfect spacing. Because if this pass is made, we're in closing distance to make a play on the ball. Again, one of our more athletic defensemen against a guy that hasn't done this enough. But this is when you can get. This is when you got to have the discipline to slow down, recognize the sideline is your teammate. The only area you can't get beat is the interior. So it's been a great drill for us. It honestly is one of my favorite drills now. We just try to come up with more ways to encourage our middies to step up and double the ball. Okay, now we're going to go to a little bit of clearing here and talk a little bit about some of the things that we look for on that side. And I think clearing, again, I say this all the time, in my opinion, it's the most easy part of the game. That's often overcomplicated. I think that at the end of the day, if you have guys that are confident with what you do, and we've changed from having 2 clears to just 1 clear, then you should be successful in our goals 90% of the time. The times that we turn the ball over, more often than not, are dropping the ball. It's not whether or not you can go get open, it's stick work. So this, if you were to go into our bathroom right now, this is on the top of every urinal, so the guys know exactly what our field map is. At no point do they get a break from this. Now this is what I would say would be a kind of a global field map for us in terms of our dodging locations, our riding locations, as well as our breakout locations. But what this allows us to do is, in the clearing game, if we are getting stagnant, provide direction really quickly. Hey, we need to overload the Omaha side. Hey, let's get our LSNs hunting the ball in the Miami area. Or hey, when we come on out of the box to that Boston side, let's make sure we're onside responsible. So it gives us a language when we're clearing, because more often than not, clearing is about finding the space. It's not a pattern. As soon as we start running patterns, that's when we start essentially running away from open space or running into coverages. So this is, I think, step one in terms of having a successful clearing team. The next piece is our patterns and progressions. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I think every team is a little bit different. But what I will say is this, and we're going to show you guys a drill. We came up with this rule. I think it's pretty simple. We do it in what we call the QB drill. But if you're in goal and you have a midfielder and you see only green space, continue to run. So that's our rule. If no one's in front of you, continue to run, even if you're not open. Because by continuing to run, just like continuing to gas your cut on the offensive end, you're probably opening up somebody behind you. And if there's somebody in front of you, so let's say this is a riding player, then you're going to change your route. You're going to change your route back to the ball. What we did last 2 years, we made the mistake of, is we tried to get to these guys to locations versus getting the ball. And you'll find tonight, if you have a chance to stick around for the scrimmage, probably the best thing we've done so far this fall is improve our freelance clearing. What I mean by that is the first 5 to 7 seconds of getting the ball to these guys versus making these guys handle it. Because conversely, like we just said in the riding, when these guys have the ball, very rarely do good things happen. And we have college level defensemen, and they make mistakes every day. Skeleton, live, half field, all of it. These guys, when they get the ball, want to play offense. So there's a pep in their step to make plays. So I bet you the first thing you'll notice if you do watch the clearing game closely with our improvements is we'll have guys getting north-south, and then we'll also have guys who know that someone's in front of them coming back to the ball, getting it, and running it out. If you watch number 51, Griffin Corby, he's a sophomore for us. He is like a different person in terms of confidence. He just sees that he's not getting the ball, and he demands that the goalies throw it to him now. So if you can provide your short six with a voice, I think the pre-clear clear is the best clear in the business. You don't need to worry about patterns. You just give them one rule. You see space, you take it. You see the safety, come back under, get the ball and run. And very rarely do these guys have trouble running by offensive midfielders. Does that mean that we don't have patterns? Of course not. We have patterns. We, number one, will always overload the Omaha side of the field if we don't get the ball out. Number two, we will always continue to sprint our long stick midi across the midfield line. Same thing. If he's covered, stay on, keep going. If he's not covered, hunt for the ball, and then we'll sub you to the box. We've added in a subbing portion this year that we refer to as yellow, which is do whatever you want. If you like what's going on the field, stay on. If you don't like it, don't wait for somebody to call you off. Providing a little bit more input from our players, because what we found last year is we had a very specific red call, and red meant sub. But there was times where we might have seen something or not seen something that they see, and they want to stay on the field, and then we have 5 guys trying to hold the ball, 1 guy trying to play. So by calling yellow, we've allowed the guys on the field to say, hey, let's sniff this out. We got something here. We're not stopping the play, but if one guy doesn't have anything, he can run off, and we're ready to sub for him. So there's a little bit more freedom there, and it's that, again, it goes back to those little 7 to 10 second windows where we might catch these guys off guard. Brendan McKenna might have the ball on the wing, and our pole wants to sub, but Brendan McKenna's not thinking red. He's thinking, hey, I like my matchup. Or, this guy's not paying attention. I got a home midi on, whatever it may be. We have a little bit more freelance there. So we're adding some more sections, I think, into our clear. I mentioned handling adversity in there. What I mean by that really is any sort of 10-man rides or any trap rides. What we're looking to do is simply maverick back to the ball. We're trying to get our attack more involved. Very rarely do the defense stay engaged. So just utilizing our attack at the midfield line and then having our midfield come back down to the ball to create space for them at the midfield line. But we'll show you guys a couple drills here. most simply, a drill that we actually had the guys do yesterday. And I'll just pop it up for you, but it's as basic as it looks, but it teaches that number one principle of, if someone's in front of you, go. If someone's on top of you, come back to the ball. All right, so we just start with 2 goalies in the cage. We actually made this part of the goalies warm-up. We had all of the midfielders, O middies and D middies, and we had one guy step out and be the cornerback. Good for riding. And we have one guy step out and be the breakout guy, the receiver. Good for clearing. And one of the things that we've changed this year as well in the riding, and I apologize to go back, but we have for years dropped to zone. We've dropped to thirds. And what we have found is, like we're trying to do, good teams, High Point killed us in the last game last year, as we were dropping to zone, they saw that and they just came back and got the ball. And at that point, our O middies weren't stopping their D middies to run it across. So we've changed our concept from just zone to a man to zone. So while this is practicing clearing, it's also kind of closet practicing our riding concept of cover this man until he checks back, then we can drop to thirds and get ready to trap him. And on the riding side, that's bought us 5 to 7 seconds of opportunities for success. So it kind of goes hand in hand what we're teaching on this side of the field. But it's as simple as it looks. Goalies have the ball. Midfielders got to get over the top. You can see in the beginning clips, we struggle with this because we weren't getting outside the box. This is an area where if you're in front of him, you should extend the field. That's a really difficult pass to make. We're not looking to make those passes in the clearing game. It should be either check back or a flash forward. But then as we go here, the clips get a little bit better. But it was just a simple warm-up drill, and then we want to just get north-south. Good clip for our goalies. We had to get after our goalies a little bit because I believe this is Hayden right here. Hayden's got leverage. Hayden's got to continue to move north-south, but we can't throw those passes on a rope. So our goalies had a rude awakening of where they need to put the ball based on these patterns. All right, so we had a nice, honest conversation with them after as well. Because Hayden can go and chase this, and at the very worst, the ball goes out of bounds and we play defense. At very worst, if we short it, is the ball's coming right back down our throat. So we're okay getting the ball up and out. We can't short the ball at all. But it's a good way to just get the goalies involved early on. They got a quick warm-up, and now they're getting some of their outlets in. And you can see some guys did a better job taking these patterns a little bit more serious. And you can see, this is Jack Dolan covering one of our freshmen. He gives them one inside-out move, and he creates that separation. And if we can hit this pass, not only are we clearing, but we might be creating some offense on the other end. So basic concept to try to just encourage some more creativity from our midfielders. You can see that on a rope, picked up. This is one of our freshman D middies, or freshman O middies. These are the routes that scare us. Anything running east-west away from the goaltender. Two more here. And I try to explain to the goalies, you don't have to throw it every time. Because what I want our guys to realize is, put the brakes on and come back to the ball. So as we continue to build on this drill, I think we'll learn a little bit more about our personnel.
So Coach, you'll progress with that. These guys are running like a deep route, but hey, if you're covered, we got to work back.
Exactly.
That's the progression of the drill.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll tell even just the riding guys, hey, you're going to start 7 yards back.
Yep.
So when you start 7 yards back, you're just essentially playing safety and forcing that under. Versus, hey, we're going press coverage now.
Yeah.
So you step up and jam them, and now they create some separation. Cool. So yeah, there's a couple different ways to build off of that. All right. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, we got riding, we got clearing. I'm going to talk about a little bit of man up. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I do want to just have a conversation. I think this is a conversation we have as coaches all the time, how we create man up plays. So what we did last year is we really just looked at our personnel. And I think that's how the best way to decide what you're going to do on the power play. Now that we have a guy like Bowhunter who's been developed now into a system and starting to work a little bit harder, you have an interior presence, we have a bunch of feeders, but we have no outside threats. So we're not a 3-3 team. We're going to be more of a roll off the crease, roll off the crease from Max, roll off the crease from up top, and force 1 or 2 passes and force guys to come off the crease to let our interior be a little bit more creative. But the things that we look at are our strengths, obviously, understanding our formations, and then plays versus players.
And with that muscle memory, it comes earlier, like I was saying, that's just one of those battles that I don't need to fight, and I think it's just better off being left to him, using his muscle memory to keep him comfortable. It's his junior year. He has 2 years left of facing off at the college level at least. I don't think that's one of the battles I want to take with his stance and his technique, because he does do a great job of still coming into that ball. His right leg's pointing at a 45-degree angle, so I'm okay with his left leg kind of doing something a little different. That makes sense. But yeah, I do encourage players to keep their left toe and left foot a little bent in, and so their hips are more directed at the ball than upfield.
And then obviously, right, you're analyzing, is he winning or losing, right? So Alex has done a good job of winning a lot of faceoffs for us this fall and at the end of last year, so why mess with that? Where if a guy is just learning something, or you can sculpt it a little, or create kind of your own your own little face-off guy, warrior there. You can do some different things when they're younger to make sure that they're doing the appropriate things or something that you've seen someone have success with already. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. Any others? Awesome. Thanks for coming out, guys. Really appreciate it. Tyler's going to be next.
Can you just pull up that video? Where is that?
Yeah.
Hunter did all the
Do you want
video
the sports code
and
or the sports code one?
yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
So, and Hunter, hey, that's really good. At some point, I'd like to sit there and say, okay, so I'm in a situation where I am losing 80% of my face-offs. Are we going to do some of that?
No,
Okay.
but that would.
Right, yeah, so, okay, what are some of the tricks we can go ahead and try to counteract? Obviously, trying to keep the ball alive a little longer, whatever it is.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
So, but, we don't have to talk about that now, it's just one of those things that was just kind of.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so while he pulls up his stuff, there's kind of two trains of thought you can do. If you're committed to sticking with your one guy and maybe you don't have a good LSM or an athletic LSM per se, just encourage him to change up his move. Maybe swipe out. I didn't really get into specifics of clamp versus swipe versus jam, but have your face-off guy can do different moves like swipe it out. Just try to move the ball as quickly away from where the opponent thinks it is, or have him, what I like to have our guys do is get up, belly button to that helmet, put their stick in between their body and their stick, so you're not pressing down on it, so it's not withholding, but you're kind of a pain, and then trying to pull it, and then just different counters, or you can put a pull out there, which we call monster, lock wings, pistol everywhere else in the field, so pretty much everyone's locked off. You have that one extra person with a goalie, but kind of tell your attackman to hedge that and make it really hard for that face-off guy to get free and find an outlet. Meanwhile, he has a pole hat on him the whole time.
And I think in a position that is so specific, when it's one-on-one, you can really break things down. So like we might even do a drill, or these guys will do a drill where all he's concentrated on doing is moving 2 yards to his right. So that's the first step. Okay, recognize that I've lost. What is my body supposed to do next? So then we do that for 3 minutes, and then you put a body in front of him, and then you show him, hey, you lost. Now that's visual. You see that, and I move. And then you face off live, and can he recognize, I lost the face off, now can I bite my tongue, or bite my lip and say, okay, I'm a face off guy, I hate to lose, but now what can I do to be a lacrosse player? So we kind of take those, we phase it out like that. Alright.
Thanks, guys.
So I'm gonna bore you with a few PowerPoint slides, and then we're gonna go straight to video. Essentially what we're gonna talk about is just some shooting drills to kind of create your offense, to emphasize your offense a little bit more. I know there's tons of shooting drills you can do, and there's specific offenses that are run all over the country at the youth level all the way up to the professional ranks. So I think sculpting your shooting drills is to get a better look on the offensive end is really important, and I think we've done a good job of that, especially this fall, just focusing on, hey, this is what we're running, this is what we're going to practice doing all the time. So I just put a few things out here, kind of brainstorming the other day of things that we have to have. So before you can do that, right, before we can kind of implement shooting drills or implement an offense, what do you want to be? So your philosophy, what does your offense look like, right? Are you a pass dodge team? Are you a pass dodge? Are you a two-man game team? Are you like that pairs look? Are you kind of a run and gun all transition offense. So you kind of have to identify yourself a little bit and stick to those. Then we talk about our core values and our non-negotiables, just the things that we harp on every day. So those are engraved in our guys' heads, so they know exactly what we're thinking all the time. Where do I want to move? What do I want to do with my stick? Where is my progression in terms of if I pop or if I'm dodging or if I'm a swingman or all different kind of things. So making sure the guys know exactly what we want all the time. So we talk about like our offensive tenets, basically like our 10 commandments on the offensive end. So the most important things to us, right? We put those in everybody's locker and make sure that everybody knows what's going on there. And then the commitment to development, just making sure that we get enough reps. I think it's easy to come up with this cool new shooting drill. Right? That's the fun part of coaching. Sit down and draw on the whiteboard for an hour and say, oh, this is unbelievable. But are you going to practice it enough for it to work? Everything looks awesome on the whiteboard when you talk it out, but can it be performed on the field? And I think in years past, we have had a lot of whiteboard discussions, but then we haven't committed ourselves to taking enough time on the field to make that stuff transpire on game day. And then the last two things, terminology and fun. We talk about a lot just like speaking our own language. I think back of just, I was playing Little League Baseball years ago, and my buddy's little sister spoke in this like slang language. They were changing like the last two letters of every word, and it was like their own code. So no one knew what they were talking about but them. So we want to kind of simulate that for ourselves, right? So on the field, we can have conversations where the other team doesn't know what we're talking about, but I might be saying you, and this means something specific. Or drive by, what does that mean? Or swing. What does that mean to our offensive guys compared to what the defense is thinking? So just kind of your lingo, your own terminology. And then that transitions us right into fun, right? We kind of try to come up with these like hot words that are cool, like guys want to say them. And then also the drills that we do, it's exciting to do. I think the biggest thing on the offensive end, if guys don't want to come back to practice or they don't want to go into the next drill, they're not going to do it, right? So it's really important to make sure that they're enjoying themselves while we do all this stuff. Obviously down here in Florida, sometimes if you're working too hard, it gets really hot and it becomes difficult. So making sure that we have a lot of fun is a huge emphasis on our side of the ball, right? Because scoring goals is fun, and so we just try to reiterate that all the time. Just going to give you some examples, right? Philosophy for us, right? Just playing extremely unselfish. We're working for dunks. You talk about like dunks in basketball, it's in the paint, layups and dunks. So we want to score inside the paint, that 12-yard radius. We want to score on top of the crease compared to shooting three-pointers or deep looks. And then you break down layups versus dunks. I think last year and the years previous, we talked about, let's get a layup. And then we started thinking about, what does a layup mean? Kind of like, if we're in the paint and we like lay it up, it could get blocked. So now we've transitioned ourselves into talking more about dunks. Can you dunk the ball in the back of the net? Right, so I watched a 30 for 30 on Calipari at Kentucky, and he's screaming at his guys over and over again not to lay the ball up at the rim or off the backboard, right? Because everybody's a freak now and they'll block the shot. If you can get to the rim, dunk it. So we talked about if you can get inside the paint in front of the cage, dunk the ball, put it from your net to the back of the net. So that's something I'll say to the attacker in a bunch, your net to the back of the net. Dunk the ball. Don't leave any room for error, right? So if you lay it up and kind of like take some off of it, right? Sometimes it might get saved or you might get checked or just naturally your body slows down. So we talk about just full speed all the time, dunking the ball. And then obviously, the fun part. And then for us, we are a dodge, pass team, right? We want to dodge, we want to move it 2 times, and then we want to re-attack. Does that happen every time? Absolutely not, right? But if our guys are thinking that and we're emphasizing that all the time, it seems like that transpires a little bit more often than not. And then our non-negotiables, Working for great shots, run to the man you're passing to, talking heads, we call it living hungry, right? So a new concept that we came up with, that you're either a hunter or you're hungry, right? So hunters are like sniping all the time. So we talk about those guys being on the perimeter, right? They're living as a hunter. They're moving around looking for the ball. Now you've killed your prey. You're moving towards the net or towards the ball. Now you're hungry. You're going to get it, right? So we talk about living hungry all the time. So when you're moving and cutting to the ball, you're hungry, and you're not only showing that with your body language, but with your stick and with your mouth. So you're communicating it as well. Doing everything with a purpose. Getting out with your feet. This is supposed to be a T. So getting out with your feet is just like moving away from the defenseman to pass the ball. Throw the ball hard. Throw it on a rope. Finish in front. Be willing to take a step to greatness. My high school coach always used to say that. I was like, what is this asshole talking about? Right? I was like, take a step to greatness. But now it makes sense being on the other side, right? Be willing to take a hit to be great, right? You can be great and score 1 million goals, right? So take a step to the middle of the field. And then a huge emphasis for us right now is stick protection. We got a lot of athletic young guys that like to kind of be sporadic when they dodge, which is cool to see sometimes when we play one-on-one. And then when we get into a tighter setting, when we go 6-on-6, they get exposed with their stick protection. So that's a huge emphasis for us right now. And then always just dodging the score. You know, regardless of what we're doing, if we create this awesome offense, if we're not dodging to put it in the back of the net and draw a slide and score, then there's going to be nothing behind it. So that's a huge one for us. And these are just examples. Obviously, everybody can come up with their own. Committing to the process, right? So committing to those reps. It takes time to get there, so you have to be willing to do these drills, even though they might be sometimes boring. You have to celebrate, their success within the drills and be willing to do them over and over. And then how much are you repping those things? How much are you harping on all of that stuff? So I can't emphasize enough the repetition, especially on the offensive end. How many reps can we get, right, to learn it? Okay, I think everybody learns at a different pace. In a different way, but for us, we feel that if you can rep it 1,000 times, you're going to get better at it that day. And then if we can rep it 10,000 times, throughout the week, then you've definitely gotten better. All right. And then just like learning on the fly. We talk about player-to-player communication a bunch here, right? And it's just allowing our players to coach each other. Right, so the older guys, it's their responsibility to tell the younger guys what we expect, right? Or if you see someone, don't wait for a coach to call him out. Go over and say, hey, Johnny, this is what's going on. This is what you should be doing. And then the terminology piece of things. Just again, I touched on it before, but just making sure that we have a conversation throughout the entirety of the offense when you're out there. So when you're 2 passes away, you're ahead of the game, right? You know what's going on because you're talking to the next guy on the field. If you're open and you can see it, you're telling them, hey, my defenseman's leaving me, hook me up, right? I'm here. If you're not saying anything, then your buddy in crime doesn't know that, okay? And then this is just an example of just the first sheet that we'll give to the guys. So I guess after like 3 weeks, we'll harp on all these things, and then we'll show them this, and then we'll ask, hey, do you have any of these, or do you not know any of these terms? Okay, so Coach talked about the jab. We're talking about talking head, getting covered. Right? It's a terminology, or a term that we used in transition. Instead of like drawing a slide or drawing a guy, we say get covered. That doesn't necessarily mean actually physically get touched, but it's make the defender commit to you. So again, everybody can come up with all sorts of different terms, whatever works for your guys. But we have tons and tons and tons of terms to make sure that they're all speaking our language. All right. And then letting the guys have fun. Again, enjoying the drills. I think it's important nowadays too to explain to the kids why you're doing the drill, right? Because everybody's got a question, or if they don't know the why, then they don't do it with a purpose. So making them enjoy it, explaining why it translates to a live setting or why you're putting it in place, and then celebrating even in drills, right? Celebrate goals, celebrate good passes, celebrate tough passes to handle. You know, if you show excitement, and what I've found, if I show excitement, then the guys start to latch on a little bit. And then hopefully after a month or a few weeks, then the upperclassmen or some of the guys that I've been kind of praising for a while kind of take that responsibility and start celebrating the younger guys. And then it's kind of a effect where hopefully in the spring, you know, they're just hooting and hollering every time they catch a pass and score a goal. All right, I'm gonna go right into our film stuff, and just basically we're gonna go through some drills that build us into our offense. So our simplest offense right now is our power set, and we've emphasized taking the ball behind the cage in power. We can go from up top, but this is like a big little situation where we're gonna set a pick behind the cage or have a roll off. We have two guys up top that are hunters, right? They're snipers at the hammer spots. Our hammer spots we call inside 10 yards, outside the hash. So if you catch that ball, we're expecting you to hammer the nail and put it in. And then we have our two interior guys that are just living snively, sneaky and lively, and trying to make plays in there and work as a two-man. So essentially it's two groups of two, if you will. But really, really simple. Guys don't have to think too much, and it's easy to go from drill to drill and then progress all the way to 6-on-6, which you guys will see in just a second. So I'm just going to kind of draw this up really quick as well. That diagram that I just had is our power offense. And let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Right, so this is our dodger here. If we take the ball here, right, we would roll off, and these guys could really do anything inside. We emphasize one guy being high, one guy being low on the dodge to fill space. And then these guys, right, these are our hammers and these are our hunters. Their responsibility is giving our dodgers space and then reading defensemen. Right? So first you want to read your own defensemen. What are they doing? How can I take advantage of that? And then next, right, it's can I read my offensive player? Can I read my teammate? Right? So in order to read him, I have to know what he does pretty well. Right? So we talk a lot about just knowing our own personnel. Don't put yourself in a position where you know you're not going to be successful as an individual, and then also know what Johnny or Stevie does well. If he can't go left, don't expect him to go left, right? Try to help him out. So we are going to break our shooting drills down all the way to the first dodge, right? If we want to draw a slide and attack the cage from behind the cage, we need to just do these drills over and over. So what we'll start with is just a progression of a quick little move behind the cage, right, into a question mark dodge. And we will do this with all of our attackmen and basically probably about 4 or 5 of our midfielders that we take down and act as kind of like invert guys for us. We'll go through a bucket of balls for each one, right? And these guys should be going at the same time. A lot of times when we have some of our older guys, what we'll do is we'll have a conversation with each other behind the cage and say, hey, what kind of combo dodge are we going to do? And they'll do it together. So it might be a roll to a swim, it might be a swim to a roll, to a bounce, and then re-attack. So they're going to kind of combo dodge together, and then every time they'll get to the island, it'll be simultaneous, and they should kind of be mirroring each other the entire time. This is a mix of our older and younger guys, and you'll be able to tell which one is which, I think, pretty good. So those are our question marks, and we'll go through this over and over again. And this is the point where we can really emphasize stick protection, getting not to 5 and 5, but 7 and 7 to increase your angle. And again, you'll be able to see some guys run at an angle, and those are the guys that really don't have a lot of success when we go live. The guys that get up to 7 and 7, right, and then really find themselves in a good spot, the guys that have success. Here is just our inside rolls. So we'll drive to the island, we'll inside roll. Some of our guys will work on like kind of our leaner, where we're dropping our shoulders, keeping our hands high and putting it high. Some of our guys are so young that we don't even want to complicate things. You just have to get across the cage and finish in front. So that's why you'll see a mix of guys. Some guys will keep it in the same hand, finish in front. Other guys will switch hands, and I'm okay with either of those, as long as we're getting nice and high to increase our angle. And then we'll go to the rocker, right? The rocker is kind of the next phase of things. We're getting to the island, right? We're rolling back to set up our defenseman, and then we're coming back to the middle to get the ball off, right? And I think something that we've concentrated a lot on is just our change of direction, right? And change of speed, right? So know your plan before you do it. So if you're going up and you want to kind of work that island a little bit, understand your first roll is just to set up your next roll. Right, so how am I changing speeds? Something as well, just breaking down the actual dodge itself and rolling back. We found if you stand with your feet close together, right, and you're straight up, and you try to turn, you're gonna get pushed over. If you have a wide base and you get really, really low, it becomes a lot harder for guys to push you over. Right, so you'll see some of the guys get really low. This next guy that goes on the left side, or on my right side here, he's driving lefty. Does a really good job of getting low on all of his rolls. This is Tom Heat, a sophomore for us, right? He's able to make a lot of guys miss as well and not get pushed off his line. And then we get these low angle shots. Sometimes I get angry when we shoot them, but we shoot them all the time, so why not practice them? And so we'll just we'll make one move, we'll run to 5 and 5, and halfway there we'll turn and shoot. So our body is going away from the cage, and we are literally turning back to shoot at the cage. And when we flip to 4 on 4, you'll see about 4 or 5 times we take this shot, and that's why we try to do this almost every day. All right, so now as we progress, right now we've accomplished the ability to get to the island. What are we doing at the island? Can I score from there? Can I be dangerous? Now the next phase is, what do I do as a teammate when my ball carrier does get to the island? So if we get up here, right, what is this man doing? Right, first he has to read this defender. Right, if he takes a step down, how can I be a threat? Right, if he stays right here, it becomes really easy for this guy to just be in the way. Right, he's guarding too. He can help down on the dodger, and then he just stays with that shooter, and it becomes really difficult to get that pass off or him to be a threat. So we are just going to talk about drifting here. Right, we drift into a threatening spot as that dodge gets to the island, and this is just simply dodge to the island, drift to the middle of the field, and then hammer it home. One thing that a lot of guys do is continue to drift away from the ball, right? Even when the ball is in the air, they continue to drift and it becomes hard to catch, right? Or they decrease their angle. They've gotten to a good spot and then they keep going, they run themselves into a non-dangerous spot. So we talk about drifting and then stepping back to the ball, right, when it's in the air. So that is what we call our rip technique. So you're always ripping to the ball. So you drift away and then rip back to the ball. Right? Some of our younger guys, right, that's a transfer, he's shooting his sidearm and he's just drifting away from the ball. Right? Some of our older guys will do it almost every time. They'll drift away and then come back to it. And again, this is a mix of old and young. This guy does it pretty well. Always, oh, maybe not. A little lackadaisical, but you can see a little bit of the difference. Some of the guys that are drifting, and then we come back to the ball, right? So that's one of our seniors there, just comes back to increase his angle a little bit, right? Really, really basic drill. Get to the island, drift away, give the dodger space, and then catch and shoot.
Do you care what hand they have it in? They just put in their dominant hand?
Yeah, so for this, we start with their dominant hand, and then once we've developed, obviously like in our 8-hour phase, we're doing a little bit less movement in shooting drills. It's more of just the technique to develop a right and left hand. But for those, yeah, it's predominantly your dominant hand, and whatever you can get the shot off with, let's do that. Again, back to knowing our personnel. I'm not going to ask, right, if Hayden can't catch and throw lefty, please don't put it in your left hand, right? You're not setting yourself up for success that way. This is just a double drift. So now, right, if this man drifts, this guy has to kind of get out of his way, right? So the spacing of this is really important. Very, very simple again, but as he drifts in the middle, this man just drifts a little bit wider. So if we can throw the ball forward, right, and then out the back, right, we're looking for a shot as well. So we just simulate that in a shooting drill. We'll dodge to the island with our head up. We'll drift to the middle. We'll try to step in to be a threat. We'll swing it over to the backside to get a shot off. And when we're doing this, it's I think a great time where we can really harp on the small things within our dodging as well. Right? So this is a disguised stick drill. We're mimicking our offense, and we're getting a ton of shots off. Right? So if you can see all this stuff, Bo, not necessarily a ball carrier, but does a pretty good job. Right? If you watch 42 in this drill as well, right, he does a good job of becoming a threat all the time. And then now we're talking about, okay, if we can't get a shot off right there after 2 passes, what would you do next? If you have a lot of space, you're probably going to dodge. Right? So it's a double drift to a dodge. We get to the island, we swing it twice, and we're thinking, go again. So not going to have a ton of time or a ton of space, but we're going to have the ability to probably make one move, whether that's getting underneath or hitching to the middle to your strong hand. Right? I let them have some creativity. Right? Again, at our level, we have the luxury of kind of recruiting some guys, so we're not going to completely change their game. I saw this guy do this really well, so let's have him do that really well for us. I'm not going to say, hey, you can't roll anymore, but he's an unbelievable roll guy. And so we let these guys do kind of what they do well. Again, getting to the island, bouncing out with our feet, getting away from defense, and hammering it home. All right, so now we'll get a look at this in action. So we've basically just taken the shooting drills and put in a defense. So now we have 4-on-4, right? Same concepts apply. If we drive to that island, we're going to be drifting away, right? If we move it twice, we're looking to catch and go, right? Or catch and shoot it. All right here we get to the island. Great job with our spacing, drifting away. Allows him to work a short stick here. Another great job of drifting away, giving that diver some space. Right? I'd like to see us go right here with this space, but again, I think for the sake of this, he sees a good matchup behind the cage, a short stick, so why don't we take advantage of that? Swing the ball here, right? A little bit too much dancing, but you'll see here, he takes a short angle shot, and that's exactly what we were practicing, and that's why we do it. Right here we dodge. Again, we read our teammate, looks like he's going hard, so we drift away. Look at all of the space he has, right? All of this space to operate, right, and work on that island against the short stick. Now he can just make one move potentially and draw a slide. We get that look, get to the island, and now we have a nice little inside roll, right? We're not bad there. Good little combo, dodging hard, gets to the island, works it. Throws a little fake, very similar to if you saw that was Alec Drosos. He did the same thing that morning, right, in our shooting drill. He went up, threw a little pump of the island, rolled back with his right hand, and put it in that top corner. Again, even Bo, not necessarily a ball carrier, but gets to the island, we have great spacing, and then we allow us to get to the backside there. Again, drifting away to give ourselves space. Move the ball, and now, right, double drift to a dodge. One of our newer guys, like to see him kind of put his foot in the ground and finish in front. So if anybody has any questions or just shoots me an email, happy to put it on a hard drive or share it to you, Google Drive or anything like that. Again, appreciate you guys coming. Hopefully you got something out of it there.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, saving the best for last. Defense. All right. First off, we're going to go over a few concepts here in terms of on-ball pressure, adjacent pressure, and then some trap zones within a 6v6 setting. The initial thing that we want to think about is who you are as a defensive unit. I think that's the most important piece, is finding out, are you a zone defense? Are you an early slide team? Will you be sliding adjacently from the crease? It's all dependent upon what you believe in as a defensive unit, and then obviously your personnel. But ultimately, what we're going to go through first and foremost here is, for us, we are a disruptive defensive unit. In order to do that, one, we had to find that. Obviously, in recruiting, Division I, you're able to pick and choose, for the most part, of who you want on the defensive end. We like guys who are aggressive, who are physical, and obviously have a good IQ for the game. And then once you do that, you want to define it as simple as possible. And then after that, being a chaotic, disruptive team defense, you want to make sure that the guys own it. And I'm going to show you some clips from 2 days ago versus yesterday. Some guys forget, or they're tired, or obviously being at the college level, you have a lot of things going on through your mind, whether it be academics, midterms, finals, that kind of stuff. They take a day off. We're here to make sure that once you step on that field, you have to compete every day. So right off the bat, what I'd like to show you here is what we don't want to do as a defensive unit. And all we're really going to see here is the ball being moved around the horn. What I want you guys to recognize is, for us defensively, we want to do what we call move with the ball, and we want to pressure out adjacent. We want to, because of the shot clock, once there is a 6-on-6 setting, you're looking at, we're attempting to force the offense into areas where they have to run away from that on-ball defender, change direction 2 or 3 times, and then throw that ball with pressure on their gloves. And if we can do that, we're stretching them as a unit. That, to us, is one, going to be able to define the on-ball defender, whether or not he's doing his job properly, and if and when he does commit and force that offensive player one way or the other, we stick to that plan. And if we have stretched, we're going to have a lot more time behind that to be able to decide what we're going to do. So if you don't do that, and what you'll see here is the offense is going to, their initial dodge, which is going to be on this high left corner, our first point of contact is going to be at the edge of the paint. And for us, the edge of the paint is about 12 to 15 yard arc from outside the hashes to the top center in between the pipes to the other side. Ideally, what we want to do is make sure that our goalies are making saves and seeing shots consistently outside of that arc. We have the trust in our goalies to be able to make those saves. You'll see here, there's no touch. We call this skeleton offense or skeleton defense. There's not really much pressure. The offense is one, catching and throwing. They're shrinking us as a unit. And then our first point of contact is 10 yards inside the box. The ball carrier now has his eyes downfield, no ball pressure, He has a pretty good look at the cage here. They've shrunk us, Their confidence is growing every time they throw the ball. They're getting comfortable with themselves, And we want to keep them on their heels rather than them growing that confidence, as we just talked about. So no ball pressure yet. Their initial dodge is inside the box. Their secondary dodge, They're able to get to where they want to, and ultimately they score a goal. Defensively, we want to eliminate time and we want to eliminate space. Both time being on-ball decisions for the offensive player, off-ball, and then obviously with the shot clock, we want to eliminate as much time off the clock as possible. So we'll talk about on-ball, our technique for our pulls and our short sticks. Here you'll see one of our junior close defensemen, Tyler Morris. What we want to do on ball is, as a pull, you want to utilize that 6 feet. You want to make sure you have 2 hands on your stick. You want to have your head up, your chin up, your chest up, and within your feet, you want to make sure that you're staggered, so you're able to make an athletic movement once the ball carrier dodges to his left or right. Very similar to in football, D-backs, right? If you were to watch our defensive midfielders, or if you watch a D-back, their fluid motion, if you were to fast forward and rewind, it's the exact same motion. Their hips, their knees, their feet, everything is aligned. They're running in full speed, and when they plant and retreat, there's no wasted steps, what we like to call. So when you go and approach the ball, if your stick is down and out, you get a touch on the gloves. That's a plus for us. We have now ball pressure. But two, if they can make a move, you have 3 feet outside of your top hand to be able to recognize, all right, do I need to get my hands on him now? Or do I need to retreat? There's more time and there's more opportunity for us to be able to react rather than going out there, standing up, not being in an athletic, having an athletic movement. We would have to open up our hips right away, which is ideally not what we want to do yet. And then lastly is, if your stick's on your hip, right, they're going to be able to get into you. You have to drive them off with your hands. You've created separation. There's less time for you to react, and then there's less time behind that for everyone to make a decision on what to do. So this is very simply just an approach drill. You'll recognize if you watch the closest defenseman, he'll approach the ball. He'll make sure he's in a staggered stance. His head is up. He's going to say, I have ball, very loudly. He'll get a touch on the gloves, stick is down and out, and he'll make sure once the ball has been exchanged, his stick will go up in a passing lane. Now you can do this with your strength, and I would say at the lower levels, just commit to making sure that the poles and short sticks have their stick at all times in their strong hand. What we like to do is take away those passing lanes, put our stick up in passing lanes with our offhand, but it's very difficult to count on a defender to be able to make a play with his offhand if you're not consistently practicing that on a daily basis and throughout the year. Let's see, I'll turn this up a little bit. So after he approaches the ball, gets a touch, he recognizes the ball is moved, he's going to start putting his stick up and in. The head of his stick will be elevated above his to make sure that he's disrupting any opportunities for an offensive player to throw a skip pass through. Yeah, we might not get it, but if we put a stick up, it's the same thing when we like to say the forest, right? If there's a tree branch and you're around the golf range and you try to hit a ball through some trees, you might hit something, right? And that's what we're hoping for, and not get a knockdown. Is there any questions with that? All right, here, very simply a drill. We'll act as if the ball is coming from their left. Their sticks will be up and in. And adjacently, we want to make sure that we're anticipating where the ball is going by the posture of the ball carriers and their men recovering. So you'll recognize that these guys are the offensive players, and our defenders will anticipate where the ball is going. They'll be able to get their stick, what we say is in their jock, make sure they're arriving with a poke, getting on their hands. That's going to force the offensive player to retreat and run away. And then the posture of the offensive player with the ball, his arms are up. That looks like he's going to throw the ball. We'll attempt to leave with a check. Get a piece. Offensive player throws the ball. We're going to leave with a check. And then, as you see, our stick will be up and in, being ready to play support defense if they were to dodge on that wing. Go again, get a piece, leave with a check.
Coach, do you like to change their approach if they're more of a dodging posture as opposed to a shooting or passing posture? Like if they're like teeing your guy up ready to make a move, will you arrive more with hands like on hips, or do you still try to arrive with both?
It's really dependent on is it an initiation dodge? How tight have they compressed us? So what we call those is on the backside. If we recognize we're supporting as an off-ball defender, we're supporting the one slide. We have to help in, obviously, because if you're stretched, the interior where we want to protect, is probably going to be more susceptible for an offensive player to throw that in. So we use the pipeline, so ball side pipeline. If the ball were up here, we would shrink on the back side to be on the weak side pipeline to support. If that ball were to go to the back side, we call that a Superman approach. So it's very unrealistic to be able to get out there, right, and throw a poke. We never want our guys to throw with one hand. We do that in man down or in a situation where we know that, we call it paint 3, paint 4, paint 5 based off that transition situation. We don't want to make contact with our fists until there's certain locations on the field where we will. Mainly, if a guy is bringing his arms up to shoot, we'll get a poke and we tell our guys to break down and splash their feet to be able to react accordingly. So yeah, really savvy offensive players at the next level are reading you. So as they catch the ball, if you run out there and go directly to the hand and you throw a poke and you continue to go past him, he's won that battle. And he's also able to, I'm sure Coach mentioned it, the triple threat. So he can, as he catches that ball, he can shoot, he can redodge, he can feed, right? So we have to be ready for all of those. So it's really based off of where the offensive player is. Is he inside the paint? Is he coming up the hash? It's a moving target. We have to meet him at an area. And then it's KYP. We have to understand where the offensive player wants to go to his strong hand. And then it's a stick, then break down with our feet. So we will talk about good on-ball pull posture. Our objective here, after we stretch the offense, when they start initiating, our stick is down and out. When they start coming to us, our pull is we call battle approach. So we're squared up toe to toe, just like in an alley, right? So the dodger starts coming to me. I want to, match his speed, all right? I want to retreat long steps, stay in my stance, and I don't want to use my stick. What we see a lot in the recruiting process and younger guys is they're going over the head, right? If you're doing this, your hips are opening, offensive player can then change direction, and it's very difficult to change your hips from one side of the field to the other and still be in a good spot to be able to make a decision and then get your hands on it. Once the ball carrier makes his move, right, the first point of contact for a pull is the head of our stick. If we can get contact on the head of the head and the upper part of our top hand, if I'm a lefty, it would be outside my left hand. After he makes a move, I want to do what we call trail. So I want to deter the ball carrier from recognizing that I'm forcing him one way. If he rolls, I keep that stick down on his back. If he rolls, then I would be able to step up. And then at that point, the second point of contact would be in between my left and right hand, which is where I have the most leverage. Let's see, ball carrier gets down the alley. He's ridden down the head of the stick to in between his left and right hand. He's making contact. He's trailing him. And then at the next point is, do we need to slide? And we'll get there next. But if we're able to knock a ball carrier off his line and deter him from getting inside the paint, we've done our job, but our job isn't done until he moves the ball. There is a lot of stick here, and it isn't unbelievable on-ball D. For our better athletes who can run and change direction quickly, we do let them go a little bit. But in an ideal world, he did his job. He forced the ball carrier away from the cage. We use this area right here. I'm sure you've all heard of GLE. 3 yards behind that would be bocce, back of crease extended. That's a line at the back of the crease from sideline to sideline. If we can get our hands on him as we do here at back of crease extended, now we can recognize behind that, do we need to slide? Is he in trouble? And then can we deter that ball carrier from getting to the cage? Now, our hands are a little high here. We want to get on the hip bone. If you get on the hip bone of an offensive player and you tell an offensive player to stand there, push him on his hip, he's automatically going to have to take a step outward to catch himself from falling. If you hit a guy above that, 1, you may run it up and hit him in the head. 2, you're now standing up. You have to take a false step forward to catch yourself. He may have a step in front of you, and then you're probably not really going to be able to move those bigger guys if you're above the hip bone. We leave with a check. We did our job. This is behind the cage. What I want you to notice here is on ball, Tyler Morris, right? This offensive player recognizes he doesn't really want to dodge this guy. He's going to throw the ball. We're leaving with a check. we're changing, our objective here is not to, you know, break his arm. We're trying to just get a piece of the bottom hand specifically, because percentages, you're gonna get that rather than trying to disrupt the ball and put your stick in a passing lane. If you open up there again, you've opened up your, you've elevated your upper body. If he changes direction and recognizes that, you're gonna have to be chasing him at that point. But he gets a piece of the bottom hand, he changes the trajectory of the ball, we've slowed down their offense. The ball is dropped, we now have saved ourselves time. Outside of the back of crease, when a ball carrier is dodging, we tell our poles, we can throw some checks here, within reason. If I'm loading up and pulling back, there's time that we're wasting. Every time I bring my stick up, the offensive player can read that, he can change direction. I may be a step behind at that point. It's hard, we call it sting, don't swing, throw hard checks. Once he gets closer to bocce, we will then make contact with our feet, with our fists, and bring our feet. And then another one where we're throwing that poke, and then we're leaving with a check. Another one here behind the cage. You see his stance, right? There's a mirror drill that we do. We eliminate our sticks here, and all we ask our guys to do defensively, stay 3 yards away, and we'll go in a square. You can have you can utilize, you know, the end line to 10 yards inside the hashes and make a box. Have half your guys on one side, half on the other. Meet in the middle. Maintain that 3 yards. Take it slow. If I shift to my left, you have to make sure you're shifting your body. All right, squaring up with me, moving to your right in an athletic position. And then go to the opposite, retreat, forward, see how they do in terms of reacting. It's just muscle memory, mental reps, and physical reps. And then at this point, I think we recognize that Dixon Smith on ball here, this drill has helped him. He keeps his stick in good position, he retreats, and then he's able to read and react to what the offensive player will do. Eliminate that gap in space. If he were to be about 3-4 yards away, this offensive player is going to have a lot more room to run. He's gaining speed, and a defenseman who's standing still doesn't really have a shot there. Closing that gap and trying to match speed there, really unrealistic. Here's the bocce call, gets contact, turns the ball here from the cage, gets on the bottom hand.
Is that the goalie that called that?
Yes, so it's very important for our goalie. He's facing downfield. His objective is to communicate directly to the on-ball defender. When you hear bocce, it's a trigger in your head. Okay, I'm close to the cage. Now we'll talk about our short sticks. First, we'll talk about poor on-ball short stick approaches. This offensive player is going to dodge on the low wing. There are a lot of different areas where we want to make sure that we're protecting, but there's too much space. We retreat, and there's no on-ball contact at all, so a ball carrier is able to read that, and he can make plenty of decisions here. They've shrunk us, they're now in the paint, good opportunity for them to score. What I want you to recognize here is the on-ball defender, whenever you're approaching, this is after a dodge, ball's gone through X, ball's gone up the back wing, we have to make sure that we're crowding adjacently again. That drill that I showed you with all the poles, we do this, we call it horse defense. We want to press out adjacently everywhere. So 2 away, you're working your way in, all right, anticipate where the ball will go, get out there, stretch them out. We're late here, we hop as we get out there, and every time you hop, your feet are stuck. You're not retreating and trying to match his speed. The ball carrier is then going to be able to get to where he wants. In this case, he gets to the middle, his strength, and we're shit out of luck in this instance. He hops. Show it to you again. Next shot's inside. Again here. We're opening our hips up, there's no contact. We want to stretch the offense and meet them 5 yards outside the box. He's now inside the box, and recognize that we have no on-ball pressure. There's no contact at all. He's able to read that, pull 2 defenders, and now on the backside, we're susceptible to an easy step down. That in our eyes is bad defense. Now we'll talk about good on ball short stick team. I recognize here he's squaring his hips. He recognizes the ball carrier's strength. His feet and fists. He's physical. Deterring the offensive player to get in where he wants. And that demeanor that we talked about, that mentality of being physical, protecting our interior and our paint, it's really important for us to hit home on a daily basis to our guys. And you'll see in a little bit, kind of a little highlight that I put together for you guys of our identity. We want to buy in and own on a daily basis, and obviously for the season. Again here, short stick is behind the cage. His first objective is to retreat because we don't have that extra 3 feet as a pole. Once he commits, we'll keep him going one way. We'll make contact at bocce. This is a little late, but he makes that contact, and his objective is to keep 2 hands on his stick, drive him off his line. Here again, square our hips, make contact, and disrupt the ball carrier, get the ball on the deck. So here, this was cut off a little short, but very fast offensive dodger here, very quick. He's a lefty, he wants his left hand. We're not biting and lunging, which a lot of our younger guys will do. They'll lunge to try to make contact. It's too quick at the next level. This guy's really agile, left to right movements. He was a running back in Texas, very talented player. He can create movements that if we lunge, they can read them too quick for us to be able to read and react. But once the ball carrier commits one way, we're going to get on that hip bone, we're going to trail. Ideally, we want to have our right hand on the lower portion of the spine. And when an offensive player, a trigger that we talk about, offensive player pulls his hands back and inside the paint, we know consistently, based off of what we've seen, that they're probably going to pull the trigger. So we want to try to dislodge the ball by knocking the ball carrier off his line. If you get hit in the ribs and you're going downfield and you're trying to throw that ball and snap it down, any type of contact in the ribs is going to deter you from getting any power and accuracy on it. So can we knock him off his line? Can we change the trajectory of the ball? And in this case, we do. Again here on the high wing. That's great on ball deal. We mirror our hips and our toes. We clog up this gap because we anticipated where the ball will go. We met him outside the box. Our first objective is to make sure we know what hand he is. We retreat. He makes his move. We allow him to make that move. Then we open our hips, and then we're trailing him at that point. Make contact on the hip, pop him off. In this area, that's okay to create that separation, but inside the paint, as we talked about, if you knock a guy off his line there, his hands are free, and if you don't have any support, he's looking down your defense. But in this area, we're okay with that. Top center here. He does throw this stick check at first. He's a hell of an athlete on ball here. He's able to recover. And what I like about it is he closes on him after he opens his hips, trails him as we talked about, and gets him going away from the cage. Here he makes contact. Another push. And he's not going towards our neck. So the paint, very important to understand that 5 yards outside the box, we want to make sure that we're crowding, we're horse adjacently pressuring the ball, anticipating where the ball will move, and then the green locations are the edges of the paint. We want to make sure that we're protecting those spots specifically, and we call those trap zones. So for the trap zones, if we recognize we have a one slide on the interior, has the ball carrier done his job? If we trust he's done his job and he trusts behind that we'll do ours, we're going to be able to trap that offensive player by sliding and then doubling the ball. And you'll see that in a second. Essentially, if a ball carrier is on the high wing and he gets to the middle, we'll guide him there, and our interior man will slide to his face, we'll stay on it, double the ball, dislodge it, and get it on the deck. Same thing here on the low wings. At GLE, You saw that behind the cage. We made contact at bocce. We're able to react accordingly after that, and then we'll slide and then dislodge the ball if we can, double it, and we'll support and recover away after the ball is moved. So here, the trap zones you'll see. Ball's moved. When a ball carrier rolls in this area, back of the head, he doesn't see much coming there. It's got to happen very quick, so you have to be very decisive as a one slide. If you see it, that's good, that's great. We try to eliminate as much gray as possible by saying edge of the paint, go, and you got to go fast. We do, we get a piece, and the ball's in. Here again, ball carrier's turned his back, and rolls, and we're gone. Wasn't a great on-ball D for one of our freshmen here, but you know, it's a start. So when I'm talking about the trap zone, he gets to the middle. We stay on his back to deter the roll. We have support coming to his face. What you will recognize here is the ball will be thrown to this pop who comes out adjacent. After we slide to his face, our defenseman here needs to roll into that, which he does not. Another one here, make contact, turn. It's really difficult for a ball carrier as he's getting upfield, pressure's coming to his face, he's looking upfield, he's turning, and if we've committed and we're going on our way, decisive movement, slide to the back of the head, we're going to be in a good spot. Again here, patient, poised, not lunging, make contact, turn them, and then we double them up. Again here. Any questions? All right, got a little highlight for you, just what we want to embody as we've talked about. It's the physicality piece, disrupting ball carriers, forcing ball carriers to have to make decisions outside of the area where they feel comfortable, stretching them, giving us more time. We like to pride ourselves on block shots, steals, which if there's a shot off an end line, we'll dive to be able to get that steal, and killing possessions when the ball hits the deck. First time ground balls are really important for us, and making sure we clear the ball at a high percentage, not giving the offense a second chance. It's Halloween, so this was Halloween practice yesterday. Questions? All right. Thank you guys. Just so you know, there's free beer and some snacks out here. If you guys wanted to help yourselves, and hopefully you enjoy the game if you're going to stay.
Thanks.